Okay, hey everybody. We actually have a unique sort of video that I don't typically do on the channel right now. But we actually have Andrew, aka at Special Agent Ape on Twitter, who was the, correct me if I'm wrong, lead translator for the Adventure Squad
Um,
series project.
I'd say project lead. We had so what I did for the project was it's kind of hard to explain. Um, so my Japanese is pretty basic, but um I basically did all the gameplay text because most of that could be ported over from Explorers. Um, and so as far as like translating the text goes, I did like some translation, but we had like a more experienced translator who handled the story text and stuff. And that is at the game display on Twitter, and he's great. So commission him to do translation stuff. He's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that's crazy. I had seen on I think the project Pokemon.org page when I first got it that you had there was like a whole operation going on.
yeah, we had a lot of people involved in this, and like part of it, the first maybe couple of months when I was in the chat, they were still figuring out the compression, and that's like beyond me. That's but once they had that figured out and like pulled out the files, I basically got to work on the script like almost immediately. Um, and like there was a long period of time where it was just like manipulating the script file, and I we couldn't insert it back into the game yet. And so it was just like doing preparation for when they finally got the compression to work, because it's really picky, and it's for sure why nobody tackled the project before now.
That's
Um,
crazy. Yeah, this has been it's so weird because I had done so many, and the people, who've been watching the channel, like they know I've been doing as many things with Mystery Dungeon as I can do. Always like I did a thing randomizing Explorers of Sky even, and I'd always been like I would love to do this one day. And then when it appeared, I was like, "Oh my god, like this is I never thought I'd be able to try these out." And lo and behold, I did all three of them, and here we
yeah.
are.
I will say like those games, they do kind of have a stigma in the community, which kind of sucks because like during the project we weren't sure how many people it would like land with, because like people don't like the art style, like the rumble graphics and stuff. Um, and like the music is obviously it's a different composer. It's not Iyoshi or whatever.
Oh, I
I
didn't
don't
know that.
remember.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I think that was like the first game that didn't have like the core. It had like some of the people from the main Explorers music team, but it didn't have like the main guy. So, um, but like I still think the music's pretty good and stuff too. But there's not that much of it. Like there's some there's some cut corners here and there. I will say like the project, like as far as the speed of the actual translation stuff, so this game was like kind of built using Sky as a base. Um, and like I've posted some things on Twitter about this, but basically like they ported like uh, there's like this single text file in Sky, and it's like all the menu text and like all of the like repeatable text, like the dungeon, like you talk to your partners in a dungeon and stuff, and all that text. And they basically ported that like wholesale, but it's like all in like a different jumbled up order. And so like a lot of what I did for the project was I went through the script and I basically had to match up. Okay, this block matches with this in Sky, and then like occasionally there'd be like this weird like, oh, there's a block in here that's not in there, and then it like completely offsets everything. So I have to like test my Japanese and go, oh, I kind of know that word. So
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah, my Japanese, I'm like a kindergartner maybe.
Better than
But
mine. Mine would be like a 1 year old baby.
yeah, it was a fun project, but there was definitely a lot of like guesswork early on, a lot of like testing that you know, um, and like it kind of bit us in a little bit later because we did most of our testing on light, so we missed a couple like little typos I made in that like only apply to the other couple versions. So yeah, it was like one of those things where like on release day I'd get a couple reports and go like scrambling to get a new patch out. But
Gotcha. No, one of the things that I always found was really interesting about this, at least out the gate, was the naming convention. And I'm sure you get this all the time. Was the actual selection? Because the way I understand it is you specifically named these three versions translated after the corresponding looplets in Super, right?
Yeah, because that's how it was in the Japanese version, and like there was a lot. I think this was probably the biggest debate among the team. We could not decide on a name. We decided on a name like 2 months before the project was done. Um,
Wow.
which yeah, there was a lot of discussion, but basically we ended up taking it to a vote, and like even the vote was like not like 100% represented. There were a lot of varying opinions on it, but basically like all of the menu text and stuff. So like I ported it over from Sky basically, um, and after that, what ended up happening was okay. Now I need to update this to match what was at the time like the most recent localization of the series, which was Super. Um, and so it didn't make sense if we were using all of the stuff from all the menu stuff from Super and like all of the, you know, I don't know, like we base like some characters that appear in this also appear in Super, and so we like base some text. Well, I say we, but that part was me. I translated the gastrodons and stuff. Um,
Oh, okay.
Basically anything that I could cross-reference with Super, I usually translated myself because our lead translator wasn't like as familiar with the Mystery Dungeon games, so it was more my thing where I was like, I have to make sure that this matches. Um,
Sure. And speaking of Super, I noticed as well that um I think you mentioned that the icons in the game are all upscaled from Super.
yeah, so and the icon like originally we just like had them like 2 times like basic put in, but then like we ended up taking them through like an upscaler. And basically those are just like regular like characters on the font sheet. And so like in the text, like if you were to read a text dump, those are just Japanese characters that I overwrote. Um, and like those were. I feel like I wanted to add some stuff to the translation to make it more in line with what the modern games were doing, because I feel like a part of it is like the game is kind of outdated at this time. Um, and like item icons were like a super easy thing that we could put in. There were a couple of them that are like custom drawn too, like the I drew the ones for the candy items, like the I'm not sure if you ever got them in the Let's Play, but um, there's like these
Like
items
the chocolate one, like the white chocolate and things like that.
the white chocolate was actually in Super. That was a reference to this game. Because
Oh,
like
I did not know
Super
that.
actually, yeah, if you can buy it in Super at the uh, Kafagrigus gold bar thing. And like I think it's only one of the chocolates that made it, but also like the 4-leaf cookie was another one that was from this game, and so we used the graphic from Super, even though there's actually like something that's kind of interesting about that is that the graphic doesn't match because they changed the design, but we kept the one from Super just because it
Sure,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that there was such. I wonder if there's like a bit more reverence to these games. I guess maybe in the among the Japanese Mystery Dungeon community, because I didn't realize, at least until now, that there's such a connection in what was at the time, I get, when you guys began the most current Mystery Dungeon game.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a sense of like some of the characters that appeared in this one first. Like the connection orb has like references to past games, and so there's a couple that
Right.
are
Yes.
references to this. The two Gastrodon are also connected to Slow King, and so even though like there's no like overt text, like it's definitely meant to be a reference. And then there's like the looplets and the candy and
Man, that's crazy. One scene that I wanted to bring up, and I made sure to put a note down because it's my favorite scene, and I'm sure it was probably one of your guys' favorite scenes to work on.
the
Was
one with
was
Slow
the
King
Yeah,
getting
I was like,
knocked
was the
out.
Slowking gets vaulted 30 feet in the air in
I
slow mo
didn't
scene.
translate that part, but that was definitely my favorite scene because I got the translation back. Like everyone like speculated about that scene for years, like something like it plays this like super serious music, and it's like
Yeah.
this just silly scene where they do like a fake out, you
Yeah.
know.
And it's like
I
very
remember like
early on
watching,
too.
yeah, I remember watching like a I was like looking at music from the game on YouTube, and like the comments for it was like, "Oh man, this song sounds super serious. I wonder what that's about. What's Slow King's deal?" And it's like, no, it's nothing.
He's
Uh,
literally fake dying or trolling you.
yeah, but
That's
yeah.
so funny. Man, yeah, that's it's so crazy. And also, one of the things that I noticed and kind of would think about in terms of, talking about the difficulty spike and things like that, because I'm sure, as you guys found out, kind of playing through and working on it and everything, it's kind of crazy. And I'm curious, we all, as I stream and upload these videos, me and the viewers kind of speculate on why that is. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that this was, it lived on WiiWare. It was kind of limited in terms of size and things like that, and perhaps meant to stunt replayability. And I was curious, having you were probably one of the closest people to it, just kind of in general, at least that we can speak to about. What I'm curious to get your thoughts on why that might be the case.
So, like I said earlier, this game is like based. It like uses Sky as a base. And so I feel like this game is kind of like a big rush job, like in a way, because like they made this concurrently with Sky. They like released it like 2 months or something after the Japanese release of Sky. And so like for sure, like a lot of the systems in the game are direct ports, which is why like the item stuff that I sent a bit earlier, the engine is like all of the formulas, the level up tables and stuff are based on Sky, but then the game has like a quarter of the dungeons, and only a couple of them are actually used for the story. And so I think the developers intended for you to be replaying those dungeons a couple times and failing at the main dungeons, like grinding in the like dungeons and like focusing more on the missions than like the story. And like I've seen like people trying to, because like obviously in a let's play you want to keep it moving, so like I've seen people that let's playing it, they're just doing the story dungeons trying to get through it, um it's probably a hard game to like adequately showcase what it is, because like it's very much focused on like the repeatable missions rather than the story. And like people like complain about that, like like, oh, it's not like the other games, and it's like, well, it didn't try to be either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And having kind of stepped away from it, I can totally see, in retrospect, that the optimal way to play through this game was probably not to run Dubious Valley on repeat, to restock Kecleon with Reviver Seeds so I could do Bizarre Field or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's one of those games that it's very hard to. It's grindy. It's a grindy game, but I still like it. I feel like people were too harsh on it before it came out. Before the translation came out.
Yeah,
Kind of.
totally. And which is interesting too. You bring up a good point about it being like grindy, because then you contrast it with the game that came out afterwards, which is Gates to Infinity, which is
Oh
arguably
yeah,
just
that's
a
like
major.
so easy.
Yeah, it's like arguably like a major departure from what everything else was doing.
Yeah, and like I think part of that is for a similar reason to how this game came to be, because I feel like Gates kind of had to be rushed out the door. Because that's one of those things where it's like, I feel like if they were, because that's a Gen 5 game, and Gen 6 was like on the way, so like they had to get it out
Very
the
true.
door. And so that's another one of those where it's like, yeah, I feel like people are too harsh on this game. It's it's not as good as the other ones usually, but it's it is what it is. I guess.
Right. Yeah, and nothing's going to be nothing. I feel like a lot of people wait, and I'm part of the camp as well. I'm sure a lot of folks are. Everyone kind of compares things to Explorers of Sky because that's such a
It's like a
standout.
benchmark, you know.
Yeah, it felt like this is what everything was going to lead up to, and then it's so interesting because this is so it's so rooted there, but as you're saying, they were kind of being developed at the same time, which brings up another point. You had sent me over a bunch of an action replay. I guess it's an action replay code. That's how I entered it in, um,
Yeah.
to showcase all of the items that you had undummied.
Yeah, so basically, when I say they ported over like Sky, they ported over like way more than you think. So the entire item database, I could use it as a reference to figure out what things were. And there's basically like a flag that they had set that like masks them all as like a plain seed, but they all still worked when I like unset that bit. And so like there's all these cool unused items that I feel like hackers would probably have fun to play with or whatever.
Awesome. So we're here in good old Radiant Adventure Squad, which was my personal favorite. I guess before I died, did you have a favorite of the three?
Um, Most of our testing was on Radiant, but if it were me doing the testing, I would have tested it on Blazing probably. I like
Interesting. You did
I like
most of the
Charizard.
testing on Raid. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You're in luck because there's a lot of merch there for that.
yeah.
So you did before I dive in. You did what was there a reason for the preference to Radiant?
Um, well, we didn't know at the outset that we would be translating all three.
Okay,
Um, when we started digging into the files and stuff, we sort of started to realize how the game was built. It sort of lent itself to being able to do all three really easily. Like it's all the exact same script file, um, and the only differences are done via like code. So like it'll have like a control code that's like, oh, this is how you display the town name, and it would like display the proper town name for the game, you know.
gotcha.
And so like it's just a process of like, okay, we have to get this script file into all three games. And let me tell you, if you're ever going to work on a fan translation in the future, don't do one that has three games. It's such a pain.
I bet, especially three that like inner work.
uh, I will say the nothing broke with the like the save file connection for between the three games. Like during the whole project, there was nothing like that. Everything just kind of worked once we slotted the script files in, which is really convenient.
Yeah, and that's fascinating too because when I was going between them, because my main outset with this game after I'd finished Radiant was to bring them together by recruiting Regigigas. That was my kind of, at least in terms of structuring the video series, was to do that. And so going from Radiant to Tempest, I was like, I wonder how stable that save. That was my first thought. I was like, I wonder if what's going to happen here. Like I see that it has the ability to do it. Is it going to do it? And it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it just works. It's really nice. And one thing I'll say, like while we're talking about the couple different versions, the like the couple differences that we did have between them, like as far as the translation, were more like the side stuff, like the splash screens. And those splash screens were kind of my idea. I wanted to make sure that people like if someone tried to, obviously like this game is not being sold anymore, but if someone tried to like make money off of our project or whatever, I wouldn't be a super big fan. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that it's like an unofficial translation, we
Sure.
released for free.
One thing that just popped into my head from that is the floor screens that appear look like you see the what bizarre field floor 1 or whatever it is. Were those kind of hand done to emulate how the floors appear on Explorers, or was that kind of how the originals kind of intended to do?
So the font, we actually changed that. The font was known by the Mystery Dungeon hacking community. It's like Tecton Pro Bold or something. So I just put that into Photoshop and got it.
Okay, because that was a really nice touch. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that they did this in the Japanese version. I was like, I really like that like that. It's funny how just like a black screen with text
Yeah, no,
works so
it
well
was
in Mystery
important.
Dungeon.
Like we did that like way late in the project too, and like part of it too, like the original Japanese font like cut off at the bottom of some letters, like the letter G and the letter Y. It's like yeah, they very clearly did not intend this to be used.
Got it.
So yeah, we replaced all that. And like the main font we replaced too, obviously. And that was a process. Um, my original take on the font was really bad, so someone else on the team did that. We had like two people collaborate on the font.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it looks sharp.
most of the other graphical assets were mine though. Like I drew the splash screens and stuff, and the icons.
Those are pretty cool.
Thank
Those
you.
were always how I was making sure everything was rolling every time I was looking at those splash screens to make sure I had them on all my sources. So I got several good looks at them, and they look
Yeah, and
good.
I wanted to make sure that the splash screen still had like the Nintendo like health and safety stuff and whatever, just because it felt more official that way. But I did want to like make sure that you know people knew that it wasn't an official thing. But also like I wanted to put in a thing about like supporting it. If they ever did like release this, I don't want our translation to like take away from it. But obviously, I don't think this game is ever going to come out in English officially.
Yeah, I'd be. I mean, who knows? I didn't expect Red and Blue Rescue Team to get a DX remake, so anything's up in the
Yeah,
air now.
you never know.
Well, while I got the game up here, I entered the first code you sent, the one that I think you mentioned was just more stable to show some of the items in storage.
Yeah,
So
I don't
let's
remember offhand which ones. I remember some of them, but if you go to withdraw, uh,
yeah, let's take a look here. These, of
yeah,
course, are all per usual. I see
yeah,
we've got the
so
Y ray specs.
yeah, the there was like this one weird one. I don't remember which one it was. But like they had the lookalike item, but not the original. Oh, it was the goggle specs. The goggle specs was actually unused. Um, and like all of these, like if we didn't set that flag, they just appear as plain seeds. And like even when you drop them on the ground, but they actually have like unique 3D models and stuff too for some of these. And so like it's worth it to kind of just grab them all and throw them on the ground. I posted it on Twitter and stuff, but yeah,
I see my the only item I could never attain in my Explorers of Sky playthrough right here.
yeah,
Good old space globe, man. I I'm sure everybody watching knows I played Destiny Tower and got ganked real hard on the 98th floor. And I was like, and then I just abandoned it. And so I was like, I have like internal rage against this thing, but I love it at the same time. Now these are interesting too. Heart of the Sun, Heart of the Moon.
yeah. This was the first game to switch those from the scarfs to yeah to the heart items. I'm not sure why they did that. I guess because they're meant to represent like friendship, you know.
It's yeah, that's probably. Oh wow, yeah. There's a whole bunch of things in here that I didn't even notice. Oh, look at that as well. All of the
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those all still work. There's obviously no easy way to test them, but those all still work. I know that the golden mask is in the game, but the amber tier wasn't. Um, and I even like I slapped item icons on them, but they're usually just like ones that I reused from other things or whatever. I think there were like a couple that I was like, okay, I'll do an icon for this one. I feel like it.
That's cool. I love also it's like icy. It's got all of these things. Sky Melodica as well. Man,
Um,
these were some like
and one
chaseable
thing,
things back in the day.
yeah, one thing with the item icons too. The color codes the colors are actually done through the control codes. So there's actually like only a couple like there's a lot of reused icons that just have different like color codes slapped on.
I can't believe there's like 58 pages of full items in this thing. It's so funny because like you just get like a window from this game as you play through it, even through the post game. But there's so much that like I just didn't happen to run into or had
Yeah,
no idea would even be here.
and like figuring out what they all were was a pain. I had to like basically look at a text dump of explorers and like all the unused like moves and stuff from explorers too. Like you can find them on cutting room floor and stuff. Um, the those are all in and they still work. You know, they ported the system wholesale. Like, uh, I posted about this on Twitter a little bit back, but basically, like, even one of our playtesters found out that the outlaw missions are actually still in the code. They're just kind of dummied out, and they like half work. Like, there's even like a custom uh, there's like a screen where Magnazone takes the outlaw away still in front of the board. Um, it's just like this weird thing. Like, you can definitely tell that they scrapped it from to get parts of Explorers.
That's fascinating. That's crazy. Okay, so here we go into these. Now these are, I think, what, only attainable after you hit a certain rank in the game or something like that. At least the secret
Yeah,
slab.
yeah, and those are like for legendaries and stuff.
Yeah, Gracidia's in here, which I did not know.
I'm not sure if that's used or not. I'm pretty sure it is and works, but
I
yeah,
okay. Wow, lost loot. Okay, we're
yeah.
getting into TM stuff.
There are a couple unused TMs that I didn't do the names of because I forgot, but
Well,
yeah,
I
some of
gotta
them worked.
say, they're the TMs about of all the difficulty in this game, the TMs were, I would say, pretty dang generous.
Yeah, they give you some like really nice ones early on, and like
Yeah, through that last dungeon, I got fire blast on like the third or fourth floor, and I had a cleffa, and I was like, oh my god, I think we can actually make use of this immediately on a dungeon that knocks you to level 1.
well, and I will say I think Blazing's probably like the easiest one because you get like Swinub or something early on, and like it uses powder snow, and that like hits the whole room. So
That's
it's like
super true.
depending on which game you have, it's like easier or a lot harder.
Yeah, I thought that Radiant was definitely but the thing is, like, I didn't use the buddy passwords until I hopped into the other
Mm-hmm.
two. But I still felt like Radiant was, even revisiting to get Regigigas off screen that I did was kind of a headache. I was like, why does Radiant just feel so much harder?
Yeah, and I'll say with the buddy passwords, those were such a pain. Those were the worst thing ever. um,
Really?
because so basically how it works is we changed the name screen, so I had to like refigure out how those worked. And basically like they match up to like the slot on the name screen, like the where the letter is on the name screen. I don't know how to explain this. And so like I had to basically like make a table like this maps to this map to this, and then kind of figure all them out. Um, so like that whole menu screen, like if you hit the home button and then go to the operations guide, that art is also mine, and like that screen, that was mine. But like I wanted to include it in the game itself just because like I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about the game online. Like a lot of the buddy passwords that Cerebi and Bulbapedia had were just straight up wrong. I think Bulbapedia fixed theirs, but
Okay. I noticed a good amount of information on Cerebi as well was trickery, because I'd hop into a dungeon thinking it was a certain amount and then it was 10 floors longer
yeah,
than it listed.
it definitely feels like Cerebi's page is like a one pass, and then they
Yeah.
never went back to clean it up. Um,
Which is okay. I understand.
yeah, the original game actually had icons for the orbs and the TMs, but I replaced those anyway because I wanted them to match.
I see these three as well: Wildfire, Tempest, and Radiance Candy. Now, what are these? Were these in the original? Like, what are? I guess just talk more about these. I have never seen
Uh,
these things before.
yeah, they were just called like flame candy or whatever. I kind of said like, oh yeah, I want to name these after the games because and yeah, those icons I drew by hand in Photoshop, but
That's cool.
basically how I did it was like I did like an outline trace of like the item like dropped on the ground, and then just like hand drew the rest.
Okay,
Um,
that's
so
cool.
yeah.
And then our good friend, the Petrify Orb.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. Like Size Bust Orb is another one that got undummied.
Okay. Shocker Orb. I don't think I'd seen that one either in game.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't. I think Two Edge Orb is another one. There's like a couple. Um, like what's crazier to me is the exclusive items. Like they're still in the code. Like they don't work, but like they all have like unique 3D models, and it's like there's no reason for the developers to have made all these models. Like they, you know, like they don't do anything. They're just little graphics that'll just forever go unseen, basically. So I'm glad that I could find them.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost as if there was a larger intent for this thing.
What I think it is they probably like had like a list of icons from the original game, and probably just gave it to the 3D modelers and said, okay, make models of all these. And so
Probably,
they just,
yeah.
because they had all the scraps of sky that this was built off of. So
Right. Interesting as well. Oh, what are these? A stone. Oh, interesting. So this is to change your unknowns, I believe, correct?
yeah,
Here's your items below are unused.
yeah, everything below that, I marked that.
Very
'Cause I
yeah.
figured, yeah, and that code, if you put in the second code, it'll let you see more of those. But there's like a bunch of those exclusive items, and they still have like the custom like formatting too. Like they still display with the blue text and stuff.
Wow. Yeah. Here's
Yeah,
everything.
like when I figured this out, it was really cool. It was like, because then like right after that, we started experimenting with the mission structure, and that's how we found the the outlaws and stuff. And like a lot of those like crash the game if you do it wrong. But like our testers were able to get like things to work, which is cool. And we found out that like linked moves are still in the code too, and it's just like, and they still work, but they're dummied. It's a bunch of weird stuff. Yeah, I would don't scroll too far after because it'll start breaking now. Yeah, because that's the end of the list.
The TMs that did not make it in.
No, I think that's
Or
just
no, what
pulling
is
random.
this?
I think that's just
Is this
pulling random text from later in the
okay?
script.
And there we go. And there's our
Yeah.
freezing.
Yeah, it happens.
Well, that's. Oh, okay. We're all good. It came back.
Yeah, it was just
Maybe?
probably taking a while to load a big block of text.
Oh,
Yeah, you
wow,
can see
this
on
is
the
cool.
bottom there. It's like,
Yeah, gender male.
yeah. Oh, actually, that's an interesting thing. If you show off the, go into like the status screen, there's like some interesting stuff about that.
Like on our team status stuff.
Yeah, so go into the summary, and so this second page, I think, was the one that gave me so much trouble. Not that one. Next one, I think. Yeah, that
This one right here.
Yeah, so basically, like, this was originally formatted like Explorers, and so for some reason, when I tried to change like the gender text, it just broke. Like, the Pokemon names like wouldn't show up anymore, and so how I got around that, I didn't actually fix this. So basically, you know how like category is like per species. I just put the species text. So in the code, the category is species, and then the colon, and then the name, and then category. So, and then it's the species name. And so like it's just this weird and obnoxious workaround. Yeah, that's a fun one. There's also with the missions where you have to find an item. They appear on the board. They appear on the board wrong because, like the item icons, the color codes would break it, and so I don't specify the item in the title text, but I still specify it in the. That's one of those weird things where like, okay, I want to keep the item icons, but it's breaking this one thing. It was just an obnoxious thing I could never fix. So.
Interesting. Okay, that's super cool. Well, just
Yeah.
more. I guess probably not cool to work with, but it's definitely interesting. That's nuts.
Yeah, we had to be resourceful.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll say like the worst thing in this project was the help text. Those were so obnoxious. I handled those.
Oh, like here's here's what a Pecha Berry is, things like that.
Yeah, if you go into the moves menu, also like I completely redid this screen. Like the one for tackle, Yeah, this
Yeah.
that second screen was not how the original formatted it at all.
Oh,
But
interesting.
I based it on how Super formats its screen because I was yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely, nice and easy to understand as I kind of hopped in. I was like, wow, this just feels, it just felt really normal and
Yeah,
natural and everything.
my favorite part about the items are the move names. Um, when we went to release the patch, I like messed those up like last minute, so I had to like very quickly like put out a second patch to fix. Like I think like 12 move descriptions got mixed up or something. All because I hit the enter key at a bad spot. So
Oh
there you
my
go.
god.
Yeah.
That's crazy how just like how one little thing matters so much to this stuff. Man.
It just offset the whole like a whole thing. So,
That's just so
but
it's so cool that I mean, at the end of the day that this exists and that we're lucky enough to know, like try it out and see what's going on and kind of, you know, just experience it because it feels like this relic that was just like lost forever.
yeah, and I mean it's like it's easy to say like I did this and this and this for it, but it really was like a big team effort. Like there was kind of a whole peanut gallery at the whole thing to like giving feedback and it was like I'd say probably the team had like 6 or 7 people that like constantly worked on it, and then like a bunch of people that kind of hopped in and out at various points. So
That's crazy.
yeah,
Well, on behalf of my rage, despite my rage, I should say at this. I mean, thank you and all your team for working on this, man. This is a real labor of love.
yeah, I'm glad to see that people are enjoying it because we had no idea when we were working on it how it would be received. So
I
you
think it's
know,
going to be a cult classic thing on my channel because it's so it was such a screamy series for me that like
yeah,
I hadn't done that before, and so I was just like playing through this, and I was like, what is this? Just stuff would spawn, like you'd spawn inside monster houses, and I
yeah.
was
There's
like,
a monster house with like the towers all like. Oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing. Like localization choices were like another thing. Um, the Pokemon stack, it was just called Pokemon Tower in Japanese, and I didn't like that. So that was my doing was changing it to stack. I didn't want people to like go googling for it and like find the like Lavender Tower or whatever.
I like how it was. That's also a very wise call for that reason alone. That's interesting. And I also like that it's called stack because I just referred to it as like, oh, these guys stacked or they're
Yeah,
stacking
like
or something like
tower
that.
like oh they formed a tower, became a tower. I don't know. It didn't flow well to me. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
because now I'm just like, oh, I just popped in this room and there's 100 stacks in here. Like it just flowed very well.
yeah,
And I think that's something. I think that's something that it's one of those little mystery dungeon things. It's like they add that in and it's like the smallest thing, right? It's just like, oh, well, what if we put these guys on top of each other? But that completely
yeah.
transforms the strategy of the game.
I will say like a lot of the future games kind of tried to do something like that with like the move combinations, like the team attacks and stuff. But I feel like this game like does it in such a unique way that like none of the other games like even attempted. So
Yeah, it kind of pioneered a lot of things. Now that you've said some things and have brought them to light, it's a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have thought about. That's just like this has appearances in Super, and you can just feel its presence now down the line. It's really interesting.
yeah, like there's definitely like a sense of like even the developers kind of don't look at this one as much because like a lot of the stuff that they're introducing in the new games is like um I don't know like it's always based on like the stacked mechanic. It's just combinations of different abilities and stuff that you know I feel like it makes your team structure in this one actually matter. um and I feel like they've been trying to do that, and I don't feel like they've done it as well since. So
Sure. And I think I agree with you. I mean, just doing Final Cavern and just coming off of that, I didn't change my team up the whole time through it. I had the same team from like floor two all the way through. And it was just
mhm.
because, I was like, okay, well, I can whirlwind with Shiftry and send them backwards, and then I can go right into a long range move or something like that, or I can just use, ironically, frustration with Shiftry, and then go right into a hypnosis from Drowsy, then heal with a Giga Drain from Sunkern, and then if the sleep didn't hit, then I had a Cleffa.
Like your team also like passes egg moves and stuff onto each other, and it's like really weird. I had never had it happen while I was doing the testing, but I didn't do the testing very much.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like there's a lot of like small mechanics with it that I feel like add a lot to it, because like they just lumped like egg moves into Hawlucha later on, but then it's like there's nothing that like really gets across like, oh, you're passing this from another Pokemon. So that's such an interesting way that the developers decided to do it.
Oh yeah, that's man. Yeah, it's like there's when you dive in, I'm sure you just like unlock the well, what's got to be interesting too. I guess this is kind of tying to what I was about to say. Is the way I understand this is you were working on this long before DX was announced, released, anything like that. Correct.
Yeah, we were kind of hitting ourselves over it when DX was announced, because it's like, oh, we're like really close to release.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's a really yeah. I was like, maybe that's a really good thing though.
We waited a month after DX came out to release. We had it done for a month basically, but also during that like time period, we were figuring out like the online stuff, and some of that's like hard to get working on Dolphin, but there are ways to do it. You have to like dump from an actual Wii and then like do some weird stuff. But basically, like we got the event Pokemon to work, and I like collaborated with some people with Reconnect 24 and some that worked with the Wii. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce it. The Wii Wi-Fi thing.
Oh, okay.
And like I think it's like 9 event Pokemon or something like that we restored, which is cool. So they're constantly in rotation on Reconnect 24 too. So like next month it'll be a different legendary than this month or whatever.
Wow. So like all the like I was hearing like is Arceus, I guess, appears through that as well, and I guess his form is different depending on what
Arceus
version
is
you're
through
playing.
he's through the Wi-Fi. So he's through the Wonder Mail, which is always active. Like you could get that like right now.
Okay, that's very
But then
cool.
the Reconnect 24, those ones are in rotation, so you can only get like one of those per month, but it cycles out every month.
Definitely add some current replayability to it. That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I like that you can still like 100% it, I guess, because I feel like there's so many games that like lose their online features and you just can't. We couldn't get rescues to work yet though, so.
I mean, once you do, then if you do, I don't know if you plan to do, it's like this thing's gonna
We were looking into it for a
explode.
while, but it's complicated.
Sure, I imagine it is. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, so I'll just kind of start to wrap up with, what would you say is kind of, I guess, number one, your favorite thing to work on about this, and number two, what was, just your favorite part about this game as a whole in general that exists as it is?
I'll say like the game itself. I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I expected to, because like it had such a stigma. I was like, oh, is this like really founded? And I found out it isn't. It's a lot of people like overreacted about the game. So I guess I was pleasantly surprised by how much depth the game actually had. Like seeing like the different mechanics that it had that nothing else did, and like for the translation itself, I guess probably like working with. I complain about the help text, but seeing them work satisfyingly, now is probably my favorite. now that they're not broken, it's fun.
I mean, one of the things for me, at least, to you and your team's credit, is just like how solid this was and how stable everything ran. Like I never ran into a single. The only issues I ever had with this game were all on the developers, like, and me
Yeah.
trying to steamroll my way through it.
and that's a good thing to hear too. The release was like really hectic, so and like I also released a fan translation for the Wonder Swan Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon like the day after this. So
Okay. So you
yeah,
were
so
in Mystery Dungeon hell for a little while.
hmm it was quite hectic. So
And it's so crazy. Well, again, thank you for number one, your time speaking with me and all the folks here, and number two, just bringing all not one but all three of these things and making them functionally interconnect. This has been quite the experience for me, and I'm sure for you, and I'm sure for everybody who's tried it out.
yeah, and I'm really proud of the whole team basically because it's easy for me to take a lot of credit, but I couldn't have done this on my own. So especially the compression stuff. So that was
Shouts out
amazing.
to the whole team as well, then, man. Hey, well, while you're here, what are you up to now? Anything you'd like to plug? Anything you think that people might be interested in that you're working on?
Um, we're still working on. We're about to release a fan translation of. It's called Hataraku Chocobo for the Wonder Swan. That's coming out pretty soon. We just have graphical stuff to do for that, and that's with the same translator that I worked on with this game and the Chocobo's Dungeon Wonder Swan game too. So yeah,
Fantastic.
so hopefully that'll be out pretty soonish.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll encourage people to check that out. If you want to hear more from Andrew, his Twitter is at Special Agent Ape. If I'm correct on that one,
Yep,
it's
that's right.
going to be in the description there. I believe you also do music as well.
Yeah, I do music commissions and I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy.
That's a good place to be. And that's agentape.bandcamp.com,
Yeah.
which is awesome. So you guys should definitely go check that out, and definitely show Andrew and the team the love for being able to bring this series to number one, the channel, and the games to everywhere in the world. So again, thank you for coming on, Andrew, and thank you guys for listening and sticking through a type of video I don't normally do, but I thought it'd be pretty cool to learn a little bit about how this thing came to be.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.